Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 20th of April, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at currencies, stock markets, commodities. Gold made a big jump yesterday. We'll talk about that quite a bit. And then some US techs, which didn't have such a good day yesterday. So, looking at the dollar index, we've come back below the cloud. So, we are seeing this sell off. This buying thrust that we saw was locked. We've hit what looks like resistance. The key thing is now on the dollar is to break back above this 105 level, back above that the high that we've seen. So that target is there, but we're seeing a little bit of a sell-off. So the dollar is just weakening, and that is filtering through to the euro strengthening. But again, the downside target is activated here as well, and this we've still not quite got back above the cloud on the short-term chart here. 105.75 was the level we touched. A move below that would be bearish short term. The yen we're seeing here just selling off the dollar a bit. Yen strengthening. This is dollar weakness, yen strength, and so we are just seeing the yen is strong on all three time frames at the moment. And sterling jumped yesterday. Again, we're just seeing some resistance around this 125 level. But sterling is looking increasingly better. We do have these downside targets, and the long and medium term picture is still not great. So the pound could get hit at any time. The euro sterling rate, sterling has the upper hand, and the Swiss rate we see again, sterling has appreciated quite well, and against the Australian dollar as well, up quite strongly too. So we're just seeing that transition potentially where sterling is starting to look a lot better than it has done for a long time. We're seeing the S&P 500 index is still in pretty choppy conditions short term, but long term and medium term we are bullish above the cloud. We see this in the weekly chart really powering ahead here, and the daily chart as well. Looking at the Nasdaq, again very similar picture, bullish on all three time frames, but just holding on the short term. Quite a few big sell-off days in the last week or two. And looking at the Dow, much the same picture, just struggling short term, and the Russell 2000 is holding on again, but markets are quite flat. The futures markets for the US indices, S&P 500 is down below the cloud, so just down slightly at open potentially, and Nasdaq as well. No signs yet that we're going to see a strong opening. The FTSE 100 index is bullish above the cloud, so looking better, and the FTSE 250 has really been powering ahead lately. The DAX just selling below the cloud at the moment, so we're seeing Germany just reacting to the downside there. Some fairly bad news on terrorism maybe weighing on Germany, but it's just looking less good than the FTSE 100. The Nikkei is looking not so good short term because of the strong yen, and we are just seeing the Nikkei just rolling over and potentially turning medium term bearish. Looking at Hang Seng, we see also just negative there as well, and the Shanghai Composite down just over 0.5% overnight, and just struggling really to break this 3,300 level, but still looking better than the other markets. As is the Sensex, just testing short-term support on the cloud, but bullish on all three time frames, and the Australian market looking very strong. Again, just running here, looking to break that 2015 high, but lots of upside targets to play for there. Looking at commodities, Brent crude continues its run. We are back into the range here, having had that sell-off, that shock sell-off. We've climbed back up the hill. At the moment, we're just above the cloud on the lagging line. It's 57.50 is what we want to see broken. We're at 56.39 at the moment. So we are seeing not far to go now to break that 57.50. Might take some time to be able to break through that resistance level. And we're seeing on WTI, again, not far to go now, and we unwind this downside target of $37. So we've just got to break that 55 level. US nat gas up slightly, but bearish below the cloud at 317. Copper bearish short term, just falling away there. No real standouts in the softs at the moment. So that's quite key. Wheat did have a strong jump yesterday, and we see here that we're bullish above the cloud, so that's quite interesting as well. Gold was the really big move yesterday. It just jumped, and we see here now we're in this high 270s, really clearly breaking out. The big news is we activated this 1530 upside target. That's 20% upside. We're still potentially bearish on the point and figure chart on this 1% chart below this line. But the fact is that we've moved a full 1% above the previous high in order to break out. So this was our thrust off the low, December to February. We pulled back here, and then we ran and moved a full 1% higher. That's activated that target. So it's more than just a temporary breach, or it's a 1% breach, and that makes it stronger. And we see here in the daily candle yesterday, we really clearly just broke that previous high. So we're now running and looking to last year's levels. And if we just take a look at the weekly chart, we really now need to break these the level that we saw last year at 1375. That's only another $100 from here, so it's not too difficult to break. That will be when gold really starts to move. Last year we made this big move. Looks like we're doing something similar this year. This was the higher low, and gold really starting to look pretty good indeed. The short-term chart, we've got quite a few targets here. 1280 is nearly met. We virtually nudged that last night. 1293 is the next target, and we will get a new target off this column when it locks and pulls back. And at the moment, that's 1331. That's a 4% upside in the short term, but we need a pullback and then activation for that to play out. But looking pretty good for the gold market. Silver also jumped yesterday. Hasn't activated its long-term upside target the same way as gold has yet, but if gold runs, then silver probably will too. Looking at US Treasury bonds, we fell away quite strongly yesterday. We're at 230, so on the yield. So that's interesting. And looking at Apple, just coming back below the cloud short term. Google struggling a little bit too. Amazon holding on quite strongly. Facebook sold off and came back bearish below the cloud. Microsoft has held on and is still bullish above the cloud. Nvidia is still bearish. So key thing is just keep an eye on those charts. It looks like we're seeing a little bit of a sell-off in tech. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.